The cameras were already flashing when the whisper began to ripple through the glittering crowd at the 2025 Baby2Baby Gala. Serena Williams had just arrived. Tall, poised, radiant in a floor-length gown that shimmered under the soft amber lights. Every lens turned toward her, every conversation paused. But it wasn't her entrance that sent shockwaves through the Beverly Hills ballroom. It was who she didn't greet. Before we continue, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell for updates. Because just a few steps away stood Meghan Markle and Prince Harry, smiling for photographers, trying to look unbothered. Yet those in the room could feel it, the tension. You could almost hear the air crackle between the two women who had once called each other sisters. The crowd didn't know it yet, but within minutes, Serena Williams would allegedly refer to the Duke and Duchess of Sussex as social climbers. And that single phrase would ignite one of the most talked-about celebrity rifts of the decade. Let's pause for a moment. Ask yourself, how did it come to this? Two global icons, once inseparable, now avoiding each other on the red carpet. Serena, the undisputed queen of the tennis court. Meghan, the self-proclaimed underdog turned Duchess turned Hollywood dreamer. Once, they'd posed together in cozy selfies, laughed on private jets, and toasted to ambition. Now, their silence spoke volumes. But the truth is, this moment didn't happen overnight. It was years in the making, a slow unraveling of loyalty, image, and power. And this night at the Baby2Baby Gala was just the grand finale of a friendship built on convenience, not connection. From the outside, it seemed glamorous. Meghan's first big red carpet appearance after months of public retreat. Her stylist had leaked that she would wear custom Dior, that she'd steal the spotlight among the A-list crowd. Sources close to her team whispered that this event was meant to reset her narrative, Hollywood's ultimate redemption arc. A comeback queen, reuniting with her old friend Serena, showing the world she was still part of the inner circle. That was the plan. But plans have a way of crumbling when they're built on illusion. The truth was that behind those practiced smiles and glittering gowns lay desperation. Meghan needed this photo op more than anyone realized. After the Netflix fallout, the Spotify deal cancellation, and the quiet distancing from top Hollywood elites, her brand was sinking fast. Baby2Baby wasn't just another gala. It was the social lifeline she was counting on. And in that glittering sea of A-listers, no friendship was more valuable than Serena Williams. But Serena had changed. Or maybe, she'd simply outgrown the performance. Since retiring from professional tennis, she'd reinvented herself, an investor, a mother, a symbol of strength and authenticity. Her circle had tightened, her patience for drama had evaporated. And when Meghan's team reportedly reached out for a coordinated photo moment, Serena didn't just say no. She made it clear she was done being used as a prop in someone else's redemption story. That's when the whispers began. She refused the photo. One insider texted to a friend. It was awkward. Meghan looked lost. Another added, Harry tried to lighten the mood, but Serena wouldn't play along. It was cold. You could almost picture it. The camera flashes, the uncomfortable shuffle, Meghan's forced smile. The Duchess of Sussex, once surrounded by celebrities eager to be in her orbit, now reduced to chasing validation from those who had already moved on. But what no one outside that ballroom knew yet was that Serena's rejection wasn't spontaneous. It was a decision born of months of frustration, subtle slights, and a realization that their so-called friendship had never been equal. Serena had been loyal when Meghan was the world's darling. She defended her during the royal exit, spoke of her with warmth in interviews, even shielded her from the harshest criticism. But when the public tide turned and Meghan began weaponizing sympathy for clicks and headlines, Serena quietly stepped back. And when she learned about Meghan's alleged attempt to orchestrate a fake reunion moment at the gala, complete with prearranged photographers, she drew the line. Still, that night didn't start with drama. It started with ambition. The Baby2Baby Gala has always been the playground for Hollywood's elite, the intersection of wealth, charity, and calculated image building. Everyone attends to be seen giving back. Meghan knew this. That's why her arrival was strategically timed, her look meticulously curated, her expressions rehearsed to perfection. For her, this wasn't just a gala, it was a stage. But something was off. Maybe it was the way people avoided eye contact. Maybe it was the chill in the air when her name was announced, and the applause was softer than usual. Meghan smiled through it. Of course, she'd mastered that royal resilience, that ability to pretend. But the smiles around her were tight, polite, distant. And when Serena walked in moments later, the applause was thunderous. Harry noticed it first. He'd learned to read the room, even when Meghan couldn't. His posture stiffened, his hand twitched. Meghan followed his gaze, and there she was. Serena, surrounded by A-listers, laughing easily, glowing with the kind of confidence that didn't need an audience. For a split second, Meghan hesitated. Should she walk over? Wait. Pretend she hadn't seen her? A dozen calculations flickered behind her practiced grin. That's when a photographer shouted Serena's name, and the moment froze. Both women turned, both smiled, both knew this was the moment the world would analyze frame by frame. But instead of walking toward Meghan, Serena turned her body slightly away. She greeted another guest. Cameras clicked anyway, capturing Meghan's frozen smile, her subtle step forward, and Serena's graceful pivot out of frame. And that's when it happened. Someone close enough to overhear claimed Serena muttered something under her breath, just loud enough to sting. Social climbers. It was like tossing a lit match into dry grass. Within hours, that whisper became a wildfire. Social media erupted. Fans dissected body language, zoomed in on micro-expressions, spun theories. Was Serena finally confirming what many had suspected, that Meghan's relationships were transactional? That the Duchess had turned every friendship into a ladder? If that's true, then the Baby2Baby Gala wasn't a snub. It was a mirror held up to the Sussex's Hollywood downfall. But to understand the weight of that moment, we need to go back to the beginning, to when Meghan and Serena first crossed paths and seemed like kindred spirits. Both outsiders, both ambitious, both breaking barriers in spaces that weren't designed for them. For years, their friendship was portrayed as a sisterhood of strength and success. Serena stood by Meghan when the tabloids turned vicious. She attended the royal wedding, called her the real deal. But as the cameras faded and the controversies piled up, Serena's silence became louder than any interview. So what changed? Was it jealousy, betrayal, or self-preservation? Did Serena see something the rest of the world ignored? Maybe the truth lies somewhere in between. What's undeniable is that the Baby2Baby Gala served as the final act in a long, complicated drama about fame, friendship, and the thin line between admiration and opportunism. Meghan and Harry had built their brand on proximity, to royalty, to celebrity, to causes that photographed well. But what happens when even your famous friends stop picking up your calls? Insiders claim that in the days leading up to the event, Meghan's publicist reached out to Serena's team suggesting a friendly red carpet moment, a brief photo op, just like the old days. The pitch was simple. Two powerful women reunited for a good cause. Positive headlines guaranteed. But Serena declined. Politely, firmly, and definitively. Her reason? It doesn't align with my image right now. Translation: she didn't need Meghan's narrative weighing her down. By the time the gala began, word had already spread. Guests knew. Photographers knew. Even a few tabloids were tipped off, waiting for the moment to unfold. The atmosphere buzzed with anticipation and discomfort. Meghan walked into that ballroom expecting applause. Instead, she walked into a reckoning. It wasn't just Serena's rejection that hurt. It was what it represented. The loss of influence. The end of the illusion that Meghan still belonged among Hollywood's most admired. And the irony? This was supposed to be her redemption event, the night she reminded the world she still mattered. Instead, it became proof that the world had moved on. Harry, ever the outsider in these circles, tried to play peacemaker. Witnesses say he attempted to break the tension, to spark a conversation. But Serena's warmth toward him was cool, professional, detached. She wasn't rude, she was simply done. There's a difference, and everyone could feel it. Behind the scenes, Meghan reportedly fought back tears. Her team scrambled to spin the story, suggesting the two women had simply missed each other in the crowd. But those who were there knew better. They'd seen the flicker of recognition in Serena's eyes, the kind that comes when you finally decide to stop pretending. As the night went on, Meghan kept smiling, posing, laughing a little too loudly, holding Harry's arm a little too tight. But the illusion was cracking. And when the cameras caught her standing alone near the exit, her expression vacant for a split second, it was all anyone could talk about online. She looks broken, one tweet read. The Hollywood dream just ended. And maybe it did. Because that night wasn't just about a photo or a whispered insult. It was about power. The kind of power you can't fake with PR. The kind that comes from respect earned, not borrowed. Serena Williams didn't need to call anyone a social climber for the message to land. Her silence, her distance, her refusal said it all. Now, you might be wondering, why did Serena finally walk away? What line did Meghan cross? And what happened behind closed doors that made their friendship implode so publicly? The answers lie in the years leading up to that night. The quiet betrayals, the subtle manipulations, and the growing realization that Meghan's friendships were often stepping stones. We'll uncover how a bond once celebrated as empowering turned into a cautionary tale about ambition gone wrong. We'll explore the hidden world of celebrity networking, the Hollywood favor economy, and how one woman's search for acceptance became another's breaking point. But first, let's go back to where it all began, long before the gala, before the titles, before the headlines. Back to the moment Serena Williams and Meghan Markle first met, and the illusion of sisterhood was born. Because what started as friendship would soon evolve into strategy. And what began as loyalty would end in betrayal. And what came next would change everything, and no one saw it coming. Have you ever watched a room full of people pretending not to stare? The kind of silence that hums beneath the laughter, the kind of energy that says, something big is about to happen. That's exactly what it felt like inside the Pacific Design Center that November evening when the 2025 Baby2Baby Gala kicked off. The chandeliers sparkled like constellations, the champagne never stopped flowing, and the guest list read like the who's who of modern celebrity royalty. Except this time, the real royalty wasn't on the throne. It was standing awkwardly near the entrance, waiting to be seen. Meghan Markle arrived 10 minutes after the official start time. Late enough to make an entrance, early enough to appear effortless. But nothing about her arrival was effortless. Not the carefully chosen silver gown with its strategic sparkle under camera flash. Not the subtle placement of her hand on Prince Harry's arm to project unity, and certainly not the meticulously timed smile. Every gesture was part of a script, a story she was determined to tell. A story of comeback, grace, and acceptance. The kind Hollywood had stopped buying months ago. Harry, ever the dutiful husband, followed a step behind, glancing nervously at the crowd. He wasn't used to this anymore. The red carpets, the whispered judgments, the cameras that captured everything except sincerity. He looked like a man trapped between two worlds, the royal one that rejected him and the celebrity one that tolerated him. Still, he played along, because that's what love demanded, or maybe what image demanded. The couple walked through the archway, photographers shouting their names. For a moment, Meghan believed the plan was working. Flashes erupted, lights danced, and all eyes turned. But then, something shifted. A murmur rippled across the room, soft at first, then unmistakable. Heads turned, conversations paused. And from the opposite side of the ballroom, Serena Williams entered. It wasn't her gown, though it was spectacular. A deep emerald masterpiece that seemed to shimmer with every step. It wasn't even her confidence, though that always turned heads. It was the presence, the weight of someone who didn't need validation. When Serena walked into a room, people adjusted their posture. They knew greatness when it entered. The applause was spontaneous. People clapped not because they had to, but because they wanted to. And in that moment, the contrast was brutal. Meghan's applause had been polite. Serena's was electric. One was for a celebrity trying to hold on to relevance. The other was for a legend who'd already earned it. You could see the flicker in Meghan's eyes, a mixture of admiration and envy, pride and panic. She clutched Harry's arm tighter, whispering something only he could hear. He nodded mechanically. Whatever she said, it didn't ease the tension. Across the room, Serena greeted guests with her signature warmth. She laughed with Reese Witherspoon, hugged Jennifer Garner, and posed for a few photos before finding her seat. She hadn't even glanced in Meghan's direction yet, and that was the real statement. In Hollywood, silence often speaks louder than words. Now, imagine being Meghan in that moment. Every move analyzed, every breath photographed. She'd come prepared for connection, but what she found was distance. The very people who once scrambled for a seat beside her were now looking past her. The glow that once followed her had dimmed. And the person she most wanted to reconnect with, Serena, was now the one person ignoring her. The night was supposed to be about charity, about raising millions for children in need. But for Meghan, it had become something else entirely, a test of belonging. And slowly, that test was unraveling. As the dinner began, Meghan tried to make small talk. Her voice was light, almost performative. She laughed at every polite joke, leaned into every camera flash, smiled just a little too wide. But the effort was visible. Across the table, an actress whispered something to her husband, their eyes flicking toward the Sussexes. The husband's polite nod said it all, sympathy without respect. Meanwhile, Serena was in her element. Graceful, grounded, radiant. She spoke passionately about her foundation's partnership with Baby2Baby, her dedication to children's education, her vision for change. The crowd listened. The energy around her was magnetic. And then, for just a second, their eyes met. It was brief, half a heartbeat, but enough. Meghan's smile faltered. Serena's didn't. She simply turned back to the conversation she was having with Natalie Portman. It wasn't cruelty. It was clarity. That kind of subtle dismissal can't be faked. It's the quiet kind of rejection that cuts deeper than words. As the night went on, things got worse. Meghan's team, desperate for headlines, whispered to a few photographers. "Get a shot of the Duchess and Serena," they said. "Together. Reunited." The photographers tried, but every time they aimed, Serena was already gone, across the room, in another conversation, posing with someone else. Every attempt looked forced. Every near interaction turned awkward. By dessert, the tension was thick enough to slice. The gala host announced Serena as one of the evening's honorees. The applause was thunderous. Serena walked on stage, elegant and commanding, delivering a speech that was as genuine as it was powerful. She spoke about authenticity, legacy, and the importance of surrounding yourself with people who lift you higher, not drag you down. The words were broad enough to sound inspirational, but pointed enough to sting. Meghan's face stiffened. Harry clapped along, but half-heartedly. He'd seen that expression before, back in London, during the palace years, whenever Meghan felt overshadowed. It was the same blend of fury and vulnerability, masked beneath a smile. And for a brief second, he looked like a man who missed the days when they weren't chasing relevance. After the speech, guests stood to mingle. That's when Meghan decided she couldn't wait any longer. "I'm going to say hello," she told Harry, who hesitated before nodding. Cameras followed her every step as she made her way towards Serena, rehearsing her lines in her head. "So proud of you, darling. So long since we've seen each other." Easy, natural, practiced. That's how it needed to sound. But when she reached Serena, reality didn't match the fantasy. Serena was mid-conversation with her husband Alexis and two other guests. Meghan waited politely at first, smiling, hoping Serena would notice. A few seconds passed, then a few more. The awkwardness grew. Finally, Serena turned, her expression polite but distant. "Meghan," she said, her tone warm enough to be civil, cool enough to keep boundaries. "Good to see you." "You too," Meghan replied quickly, stepping forward for a hug. Serena allowed it. A brief, one-arm embrace that lasted less than a second. Cameras flashed. Meghan turned, smiling toward the photographers, as if to say, "See? We're fine." But Serena didn't face the cameras. She stepped back, returning to her group. For a moment, Meghan stood there frozen, unsure what to do next. Then she tried again. "We should get a photo together," she said brightly. "It's been ages." Serena's expression didn't change. "Maybe later," she replied smoothly. "I promised Alexis we'd slip out after the next segment." Later never came. Within minutes, Serena and her husband made a quiet exit, leaving Meghan standing alone near the floral archway, cameras still clicking but interest fading fast. The energy drained from her face. Harry approached, trying to steer her away, but it was too late. People had noticed. By the time the gala ended, the whispers had turned into headlines. Serena and Meghan, the awkward encounter. Once best friends, now frosty strangers. Social media exploded with clips and side-by-side photos. Serena glowing, Meghan fidgeting. Hashtags trended. Hashtag social climbers. Hashtag Serena shade. Hashtag royal rejection. Back at their Montecito home, Meghan reportedly scrolled through the coverage long past midnight. She told herself it was exaggerated, twisted by the press, another smear campaign. But deep down, She knew the truth. The one thing she'd always feared had finally happened. The illusion had cracked, and everyone could see through it. Harry tried to comfort her, but he was exhausted. "It's not worth it," he murmured. "Forget them." But Meghan couldn't. She never forgot anything. To her, every headline was a battle. Every silence was betrayal. And Serena's silence? That was war. The next morning, Serena's team issued a statement. Serena Williams attended the Baby2Baby Gala to celebrate philanthropy and empowerment. She wishes everyone success in supporting such an important cause. Simple, clean, and intentionally cold. No mention of Meghan. No denial of the incident. Just distance. Fans noticed. Insiders confirmed it. The two women hadn't spoken privately in months. Their last text exchange had been one-sided. Meghan sent a long message about public misunderstanding. Serena never replied. So, what happened behind closed doors that made Serena finally walk away? Why did she choose to make her silence so public, so final? Some say it was loyalty fatigue, that she'd stood by Meghan long enough and refused to be dragged into another PR firestorm. Others believe it was business, that Serena's sponsors and partners warned her to steer clear of controversy. But those closest to Serena hint at something deeper. She saw how Meghan treated people, one insider whispered. Assistants, stylists, friends. It was always about status. Always transactional. Serena doesn't live like that. If that's true, then maybe this wasn't betrayal at all. Maybe it was liberation. Because not every friendship is meant to last forever, and not every friend deserves a second chance. Still, there was one thing no one could deny. Serena's quiet power had done what no tabloid could. It exposed Meghan's greatest vulnerability, not scandal, but rejection from her own peers. The very crowd she once ruled had turned its back, not out of cruelty, but out of exhaustion. And yet, if you know Meghan Markle, you know this. She never walks away quietly. Rejection doesn't humble her, it fuels her. Even as her image burned, she was already plotting the next chapter. A new narrative. A new villain to blame. Maybe even a new victim story to sell. But before that storm began, something else happened. Something subtle, almost invisible to the cameras. As Serena walked out of the gala, someone overheard her speaking softly to a friend. "Some people climb so high," she said. "They forget who helped them up." That single line would echo through Hollywood for weeks, dissected in podcasts, discussed on talk shows, quoted in articles. It was elegant, poetic, and devastating, because everyone knew exactly who she was talking about. But this wasn't just the end of a friendship. It was the beginning of exposure. The night that changed everything wasn't just about Serena and Meghan. It was about what happens when power built on perception collides with truth built on integrity. And that truth was about to unravel a lot more than a red carpet photo. Because what came next would make this gala look like the calm before the storm. And no one, especially Meghan, was prepared for how brutal the next act would be. Friendship doesn't usually explode overnight. It erodes, quietly, subtly. Until one day you realize the laughter sounds forced, the messages feel strategic, and the smiles are more about optics than affection. That's exactly how the story of Serena Williams and Meghan Markle unfolded. It wasn't one big betrayal. It was a slow unmasking. But here's the question that keeps people talking. Was it ever real? Or was it always performance? To understand the tension that erupted at the Baby2Baby Gala, we have to go back to the beginning, to the moment two women from completely different worlds collided under the blinding lights of ambition. It started in 2010 at a glitzy charity event in Miami. Serena was already a global icon, her trophy shelf overflowing, her name synonymous with dominance. Meghan, on the other hand, was still that actress from Suits. She was charming, witty, and eager, always eager, to meet the right people. That night, she found herself introduced to Serena through a mutual acquaintance. Serena, gracious as always, greeted her warmly. Meghan lit up, immediately flattering her. "You're such an inspiration," she'd said, her tone just right, admiring but not overbearing. Serena smiled. She'd heard it all before, but Meghan had something different, energy. Determined energy. They exchanged numbers. Within weeks, Meghan was sending friendly texts, cheering Serena on during tournaments, tweeting compliments that conveniently caught the attention of entertainment blogs. "Supporting my girl Serena, always grace and power on and off the court." The friendship, at least publicly, looked genuine. But insiders at the time noted how quickly Meghan began referencing Serena in interviews. "She's my role model," she said once. "We're close. She's been amazing to me." And at first, Serena didn't mind. Meghan seemed kind, motivated, and ambitious. Serena had a soft spot for women trying to make it on their own, and she saw in Meghan someone hungry for change. They began to meet for lunch when both were in Los Angeles. Meghan even visited Serena's matches, often posing for photos backstage. The bond looked solid, the kind of friendship that made headlines. But there was something else happening behind the smiles, a power dynamic. Serena didn't need Meghan. Meghan, however, desperately needed Serena. In Hollywood, proximity is currency. Who you're seen with often matters more than who you are. And for Meghan, being photographed next to Serena wasn't just friendship, it was a statement. It said she belonged among greatness. When Meghan started dating Prince Harry, she leaned on that friendship even more. Serena was one of the first people she reportedly called for advice. "She's always been someone I can count on," Meghan told Vanity Fair in her first major royal-era interview. "She's so supportive." But here's where it got tricky. Support has boundaries. And Meghan, it seems, never learned where those boundaries were. At the 2018 Wimbledon Championships, Meghan made her first royal appearance as the Duchess of Sussex. Right there in Serena's player box, the cameras zoomed in on her every reaction, every wave, every smile. For Serena, it was business as usual. For Meghan, it was strategy. That day wasn't just about tennis. It was about reclaiming the spotlight. Even the tabloids noticed how Meghan's presence shifted the narrative. The headlines weren't "Serena chases another title." They were "Duchess Meghan cheers her best friend." The friendship that once seemed mutual was becoming a performance piece. And behind the scenes, people close to Serena began to notice a pattern. Meghan was calling frequently, not just to talk, but to request favors, introductions, endorsements, connections. She'd always say it was for charity or awareness, one insider later revealed. But somehow, it always benefited her. Still, Serena stayed loyal. She even defended Meghan publicly when the British tabloids turned vicious. "She's a strong woman," Serena told reporters. "I know her heart." It was a rare moment of solidarity, but also one that tethered Serena's image to Meghan's growing controversies. And as the world turned its judgmental gaze on the Sussexes, the backlash began to spill over. When Meghan and Harry left the royal family in 2020, Serena initially offered quiet support. Privately, she was sympathetic. Publicly, she remained cautious. She'd seen enough of the media circus to know when to keep distance. But Meghan didn't want distance. She wanted solidarity and visibility. So, during Oprah Winfrey's bombshell interview, when Meghan mentioned Serena again, it wasn't just casual name-dropping. It was a reminder to the world that she still had powerful friends in her corner. "Serena has been incredible," Meghan said. "She knows what it's like to be in the spotlight." But what Serena reportedly felt after that? Uncomfortable. Because she hadn't been consulted. She hadn't agreed to be part of that narrative. And in Serena's world, loyalty meant discretion. You don't drag your friends into your drama without warning. The dynamic had officially shifted. Meghan saw their friendship as an extension of her brand. Serena saw it as a private bond that was becoming transactional. The two stopped communicating as frequently. Invitations stopped flowing both ways. But in public, the illusion continued. When Serena played her farewell tournament in 2022, fans noticed Meghan wasn't there. The tabloids speculated about scheduling conflicts. But those close to both women said otherwise. Meghan had reportedly reached out to attend the final match, but Serena's camp politely declined. "We have limited seating," they said. A diplomatic lie. The truth? They didn't want another media storm centered on Meghan's presence. By 2023, the silence was impossible to ignore. Serena stopped mentioning Meghan in interviews. When asked directly about their friendship during a podcast appearance, she paused before giving a neutral answer. "I wish her all the best," she said. "We've both been busy." The words were diplomatic, but the message was clear. Distance had become necessary. Meanwhile, Meghan was doubling down on her public persona, pivoting to philanthropy, podcasting, and carefully staged Hollywood moments. But without Serena's credibility beside her, the shine started to fade. Deals fizzled, invitations dried up, and people began to whisper, had Meghan burned too many bridges? That question came roaring back at the 2025 Baby Baby2Baby Gala. Because Serena wasn't just a former friend. She was the one person who symbolized what Meghan could have been: respected, grounded, and real. There's irony in that, isn't there? Serena had spent years defending Meghan's authenticity, only to realize that authenticity was the one thing Meghan had lost. Even their approaches to fame couldn't have been more different. Serena built her empire on grit, sweat, and consistency. Every accolade was earned, not curated. Meghan, on the other hand, built hers on narrative, an endless reinvention of identity. One day, she was Hollywood's underdog. The next, Britain's feminist Duchess. Then, America's victimized royal. Each chapter perfectly timed for sympathy and attention. And at first, Serena understood. After all, both women had faced scrutiny, racism, and double standards. But over time, Serena began to see the cracks. Meghan wasn't surviving the system. She was manipulating it. Every story, every confession, every carefully placed interview seemed designed to keep her in the spotlight, no matter the cost. What do you do when you realize your friend's compassion is conditional? When every conversation feels like a negotiation for relevance? For Serena, the answer was simple. You walk away. Quietly, gracefully, but definitively. That's why, when Meghan's PR team reached out before the 2025 Baby2Baby Gala to coordinate a moment, Serena didn't hesitate. She wasn't interested in nostalgia. She wasn't interested in pretending. The era of pretending was over. Still, part of her must have known what that refusal would spark. Serena's no fool. She understands the media as well as any celebrity alive. She knew that one public snub could ignite days of headlines. But she also knew what silence can say that words never could. And maybe, just maybe, she wanted Meghan to hear that silence louder than any insult. After the gala, as the internet dissected their every move, Serena stayed quiet. No tweets, no public explanations, just calm indifference. And that calmness drove Meghan's team insane. Because how do you spin a narrative when the other side refuses to play? Behind closed doors, Meghan reportedly vented to her remaining allies. Serena's changed, she said bitterly. She used to understand me. But those allies, fewer than before, weren't convinced. One of them later confessed. It wasn't Serena who changed. It was Meghan who couldn't handle being irrelevant. And that's the tragedy here, not just the end of a friendship, but the revelation of motives. Serena valued connection. Meghan valued proximity. Serena saw friendship as loyalty. Meghan saw it as leverage. It's no wonder they ended up on opposite sides of the same story. But if you think the gala humiliation was the end, think again. Because what came after, the subtle retaliation, the calculated interviews, and the PR warfare, would take this feud to an entirely new level. And for the first time, Serena would stop being silent. Because what Meghan did next wasn't just tone deaf. It was personal, and it would push Serena to the edge of breaking her own rule. Never explain, never defend, never go low. But sometimes, even queens have to remind the world where the crown really belongs. And when Serena finally did, the fallout was explosive. What happens when the world stops believing your story? When every headline that once lifted you now cuts a little deeper? That's the question Meghan Markle found herself asking long before that uncomfortable night at the Baby2Baby Gala. Because behind the glitter, the designer gowns, and the carefully curated smiles, there was something raw: desperation. A quiet panic disguised as confidence. Meghan had built a global identity around reinvention, but now, for the first time, every reinvention was falling flat. She wasn't the adored Duchess anymore. She wasn't the brave whistleblower. She wasn't even the Hollywood darling with a Netflix deal and a podcast empire. She was simply fading. And fading, in Hollywood, is worse than failure. So, Meghan did what Meghan always did when the spotlight dimmed. She found a new angle. They called it the Reclaiming Grace campaign inside her Montecito circle. A full-scale operation designed to make Meghan look relatable again. There were team meetings, PR decks, strategy calls with publicists who promised redemption stories if she played it right. The plan? A slow, controlled re-entry into the public eye. Softer, humbler, rebranded. But there was a problem. Hollywood had moved on. The power players who once scrambled to align with her, Oprah, Ellen, the A-list actresses who toasted her royal rebellion, had gone quiet. The talk show invites stopped coming. Production companies grew hesitant. And Netflix, once her golden partner, had quietly shifted focus to newer, safer talent. That's when the panic set in. Meghan knew her brand relied on visibility. Without coverage, there was no platform. Without a platform, there was no power. And without power, well, she'd become just another celebrity in California. And that was her greatest fear. Enter the Baby2Baby Gala. To the public, it was a charity event. To Meghan, it was a stage, the perfect opportunity to relaunch her image as the compassionate, relevant, elegant Meghan the world once adored. Her PR advisors told her it was the right move. We'll place you among the elite again. Reconnect you with your peers. Reset the narrative. It sounded foolproof, until Serena entered the picture. But before that fateful night, Meghan's rebrand had already been showing cracks. Every interview, every statement, every online post felt rehearsed. Her authenticity problem wasn't something a stylist or speechwriter could fix. You can't fake sincerity forever. Eventually, people notice. When Meghan launched her podcast months earlier, it was supposed to redefine her voice. Archetypes would be her intellectual comeback. Deep, feminist, powerful. But instead of viral moments, it delivered recycled stories and self-centered commentary. Audiences didn't connect. Critics called it performative empathy. The show quietly disappeared from Spotify's homepage within weeks. Next came the Netflix docuseries, their supposed magnum opus. For a while, it worked. It gave them headlines, attention, sympathy. But the backlash came fast. Viewers accused the couple of hypocrisy, preaching privacy while exploiting their past. By the time the dust settled, the narrative had flipped. The Sussexes weren't victims anymore. They were opportunists. And Hollywood hates opportunists, unless they're winning. Behind closed doors, Meghan's staff started to dwindle. The word unmanageable floated through the industry. Publicists whispered that she micromanaged every photo. Assistants left quietly, contracts ended early. Yet Meghan pressed on, convinced that all she needed was one viral moment to remind the world who she was. That's when she thought of Serena. Serena represented everything Meghan wanted to be seen as: powerful, respected, timeless. Their friendship, once authentic, had turned into PR gold. If she could just recreate that old magic, a single photo of them laughing together, embracing on the red carpet, it would tell the world she still belonged. And so, the pitch began. Emails were sent. Calls were made. Meghan's team reached out to the Baby2Baby organizers, offering to collaborate on press moments. They suggested seating arrangements, photo placements, even sound bites. Everything was calculated. They wanted Serena front and center with Meghan beside her, two icons of womanhood, reuniting for a cause. It was perfect, except Serena wanted no part of it. By that time, Serena had already learned the cost of association. She'd spent years defending Meghan through scandals that had nothing to do with her. Every time Meghan's name hit the tabloids, so did Serena's. It was exhausting. Serena had built her legacy on discipline, while Meghan's world spun on drama. The two could no longer coexist. Still, Meghan didn't take no for an answer. Her team pushed harder. Just one photo, they said. It's good for the cause. But the cause wasn't charity, it was relevance. And when Serena's camp declined again, that's when the quiet resentment started to boil. You see, Meghan's problem wasn't just that her rebrand was failing. It's that she couldn't accept why. She saw rejection as betrayal, not as feedback. When people distanced themselves, she didn't reflect. She retaliated. And that's exactly what would happen after the gala. But before we get there, let's talk about perception. In Hollywood, reinvention isn't about truth. It's about timing. And Meghan's timing was awful. The industry was growing weary of performative activism and victimhood narratives. Audiences wanted authenticity again. People who stood for something beyond themselves. That's why stars like Keanu Reeves and Zendaya were thriving while Meghan was trending for all the wrong reasons. Her team tried to pivot her messaging. Let's focus on motherhood, one advisor suggested. Play the role of the nurturing humanitarian. People relate to that. And for a moment, Meghan leaned into it. Carefully staged pap shots showed her volunteering, reading to children, visiting shelters. But insiders said those moments were more curated than spontaneous. Cameras were always conveniently nearby. It wasn't connection, it was production. Meanwhile, Harry was beginning to lose patience. The quiet man who'd once loved her defiance was now exhausted by her obsession with optics. Can't we just live? He reportedly told her one evening. But for Meghan, living wasn't enough. She needed to be seen living. And so, the Baby2Baby Gala became her Hail Mary. After the gala, Meghan's PR team scrambled. We'll spin it, they promised. We'll say you and Serena are still close. But how do you spin a photo of one woman smiling genuinely and another pretending to be okay? Worse, Serena didn't help their narrative. She didn't issue a denial. She didn't post an old selfie. She didn't even like a supportive comment. Silence. Cold, complete silence. And in Hollywood, silence is louder than scandal. Within days, tabloids picked apart every second of the encounter. Body language experts dissected Meghan's nervous gestures, her forced laughter, her pleading eyes. It wasn't bullying, it was exposure. And the rebrand Meghan thought would restore her empire did the opposite. The Baby2Baby Gala didn't save her image, it sealed it. It reminded the world that for all her talk of empowerment, she was still chasing validation from the same elite she claimed to despise. Here's the irony that makes this story sting. Meghan left the royal family because she wanted freedom from hierarchy. Yet in Hollywood, she built a new one and climbed it even harder. But the higher you climb, the lonelier the view. Even among her remaining allies, cracks began to form. One former stylist reportedly said, "She doesn't have friends, she has phases. You're useful until you're not." Another insider revealed, "Everything is about optics. She'll drop anyone if the camera is not pointed at her." Serena saw that truth long before the rest of the world did. And that's why her rejection wasn't cruel, it was necessary. It was self-preservation disguised as indifference. Still, Meghan wasn't ready to accept defeat. Not yet. In her mind, the gala was just a setback, a misunderstood moment. She told her team, "People will see what they want. We just need to stay ahead." And by stay ahead, she meant doubling down. More appearances, more interviews, more control. But control is a fragile illusion. And the more she tried to manage her image, the faster it unraveled. The next few weeks would bring more fallout, unflattering headlines, insider leaks, and private confrontations that would leave Meghan reeling. And at the center of it all would be one recurring name, Serena Williams. Because even after walking away, Serena's shadow still loomed large. Her silence haunted Meghan more than criticism ever could. It was a reminder that some bridges, once burned, can't be rebuilt. But Meghan wasn't ready to let go. She couldn't. Not when the next chapter of her comeback depended on rewriting the narrative. And she had one last card left to play. Because when one door closes in Hollywood, there's always another, if you're willing to knock loud enough. And Meghan was about to knock on the wrong one. What happened next wouldn't just backfire. It would expose everything she'd been trying to hide. Because the truth about that Baby2Baby redemption plan, it was never about charity. It was about survival. The charity, famous for its clean reputation and carefully crafted image, didn't want headlines overshadowing the mission. Quietly, discreetly, they left Meghan and Harry off the list. But Meghan found out. A source close to her inner circle claims she stumbled upon the guest list during a meeting with her publicist. She was furious, the source said. She felt humiliated, like she was being frozen out of the very world she'd helped glamorize. In Meghan's mind, exclusion wasn't just rejection, it was betrayal. And betrayal demanded a response. Within hours, her team went into overdrive. Emails flew, calls were made, names were dropped. "We'll make it look organic," her publicist promised. "We'll say Baby2Baby wanted you there all along." The strategy was simple. Create confusion, make it look like an oversight, then appear at the event so seamlessly that no one dared question it. But the problem with manipulation is that it always leaves fingerprints. One organizer later confessed anonymously that Meghan's appearance caused logistical chaos behind the scenes. Her team reached out through a third party, someone we couldn't easily say no to, they explained. By the time we realized what was happening, her name had already been added to the seeding chart. That third party turned out to be a Hollywood power broker, a man who owed Meghan a favor from her Netflix days. He made a few calls, smoothed a few egos, and just like that, Meghan Markle was back on the list. The air in the room had changed. Cameras flashed. Journalists shouted her name. For a moment, it almost worked. She was back in the game. Until she spotted Serena. Serena's eyes met hers for half a second before turning away. That's all it took. The illusion cracked. Because you can't fake friendship to a crowd that knows the truth. And everyone knew. Serena wasn't playing along. She wasn't smiling. She wasn't interested. The rest of the evening was theater. Meghan laughed a little louder than usual, posed a little longer, tried to mingle with people who smiled politely, and moved on quickly. There's a particular kind of humiliation in being invisible among people who used to worship you. And that's exactly what she felt. But humiliation is one thing Meghan Markle doesn't tolerate for long. It always transforms into anger. When she returned home that night, she was seething. "They set me up," she reportedly told her team. "Someone leaked that I wasn't invited." And in a way, she wasn't wrong. Because hours after the gala ended, a copy of the original guest list mysteriously surfaced online, without the Sussex names. The leak exploded. "Did Meghan Markle crash the Baby2Baby Gala?" One headline read. "Uninvited Duchess pulls PR stunt in front of A-list crowd," said another. The internet devoured the story. Comment sections lit up with mockery and speculation. "She's desperate. She's addicted to attention. Even Serena's done with her." Every insult cut deep, but the one that hurt most was the truth behind it. Serena's silence was the loudest confirmation of all. Not a single post. Not a single supportive word. Not even a neutral "great night for a great cause." The message was clear. Serena wanted no part of this. That silence stung more than any headline. Because Meghan had always believed that image could fix everything. That a single photo could rewrite perception. But this time, no photo could save her. The world saw through the performance. The reunion shot she'd planned so carefully never happened. Instead, the only images that went viral were the ones where Serena looked away. Harry tried to console her. "They'll move on," he said softly. But Meghan knew better. In Hollywood, embarrassment lingers. It becomes part of your story. And then came the twist no one saw coming. A few days after the gala, one of Meghan's staffers received a call from a reporter. They claimed to have evidence that Meghan's team had pressured organizers for access. They even had screenshots, emails between her PR office and event planners. Someone had leaked the receipts. Within hours, the screenshots were everywhere. "Hello, we wanted to confirm Meghan and Prince Harry's attendance at the Baby2Baby Gala," one email read. "They are looking forward to reconnecting with close friend Serena Williams for press photos before the dinner begins." The reply from the organizer was short and icy. "Unfortunately, our guest list is finalized." And then came Meghan's team's follow-up. "We understand. They will still attend privately. Please ensure seating remains near Serena." The damage was catastrophic. It was undeniable proof that Meghan had forced her way in. The optics were disastrous. What was meant to look like spontaneity now looked like manipulation. The backlash hit fast. Late-night hosts joked about it. Social media mocked it. Memes flooded the internet. "When you crash a party but still ask to sit next to the host." One viral post read over a photo of Meghan at the gala. Even her allies began to distance themselves. One former friend reportedly said, "This was the last straw. You can't keep faking connections and expect people to protect you." Serena, for her part, didn't say a word. But she didn't need to. Her silence was the final verdict. Meghan had turned their friendship into spectacle, and Serena refused to play along. Behind closed doors, Meghan's fury grew darker. She blamed the organizers, the journalists, even Harry. But deep down, she knew who really triggered the humiliation, herself. Still, she couldn't help wondering, who leaked those emails? Someone inside her circle had betrayed her. And if there's one thing Meghan Markle doesn't forgive, it's betrayal. She launched a quiet internal hunt. Staff members were questioned. Phones checked. Contracts reviewed. One assistant, close to tears, resigned that week. "I can't do this anymore," she said before walking out. But the truth was even more painful. The leak hadn't come from her staff. It had come from someone else, someone tired of being used. A Hollywood insider later claimed that a member of Serena's extended circle had shared the emails with the press. After hearing how Meghan tried to exploit the event for publicity, they wanted to set the record straight. Whether that's true or not, one thing is certain. That leak destroyed whatever remained of Meghan's credibility in the Hollywood charity scene. Invitations stopped arriving altogether. Collaborations went silent. PR firms began quietly removing her name from client lists. But the worst part wasn't the professional fallout. It was the personal one. Because for the first time in years, Meghan realized that no amount of control could fix what she'd broken. She'd crossed a line with Serena, one that couldn't be uncrossed. And as she sat in her Montecito mansion, scrolling through the backlash, one question echoed in her mind. Who would stand by her now? Because the walls of Hollywood's elite circle were closing fast, and the one person who could have saved her had already walked away. But Meghan wasn't ready to surrender. If she couldn't win Serena back, she'd rewrite the story instead. And her next move? It wouldn't be reconciliation. It would be retaliation. Because in Meghan Markle's world, silence isn't peace, it's provocation. And when she finally decided to speak again, she wouldn't whisper. She'd roar. What came next would take this feud from the ballroom to the global stage, and no one, not even Serena, saw it coming. Loyalty can be beautiful, until it starts costing you your peace. For years, Serena Williams had given Meghan Markle the benefit of the doubt. She'd defended her when the world called her manipulative. She'd praised her strength when critics mocked her tears. She'd stood beside her when the tabloids labeled her toxic. But there comes a moment when even the most patient friend realizes the line between loyalty and liability has been crossed. For Serena, that moment came long before the 2025 Baby2Baby Gala. The gala wasn't the explosion. It was the aftershock of a friendship that had been cracking for years. Back in 2018, when Meghan married Prince Harry, Serena had been one of the few celebrities who genuinely seemed happy for her. She flew to London, wore the understated blush-tone dress, smiled for photos, and even sent her glam team to assist Meghan's stylists. When the tabloids tore Meghan apart for everything from her heritage to her hemline, Serena spoke out. She's kind. She's genuine. She doesn't deserve this, she told reporters. But what Serena didn't know then was that defending Meghan would soon become a full-time job. At first, it was subtle. Every time Meghan found herself under fire, a quote from Serena would magically appear in the headlines. Serena stands by Meghan. Serena says Meghan's misunderstood. These weren't always spontaneous words from the tennis star. They were often prompted by Meghan's PR team. They would contact Serena's representatives, asking for support, a soundbite, a reminder that Meghan still had powerful friends. And out of respect, or perhaps guilt, Serena obliged. But over time, the pattern became impossible to ignore. Every crisis Meghan created came with an expectation. Serena would fix it. When Meghan's staff accused her of bullying palace aides in 2021, Serena was reportedly contacted again. She's heartbroken, Meghan's camp told her. She needs her friends to show support publicly. Hours later, Serena's social media account posted a message. I know firsthand the kind of woman Meghan is, compassionate and strong. Let's show her love. The post went viral. But so did the backlash. Critics accused Serena of defending Meghan blindly. They flooded her comments, called her naive, said she was being used. And for the first time, Serena's loyalty to Meghan cost her credibility. Still, she stayed silent. But silence doesn't mean blindness. Behind closed doors, Serena was already questioning everything. The constant phone calls from Meghan, always about image, always about narrative, had started to wear her down. Their friendship had stopped being about shared laughter or motherhood or tennis. It had become a business exchange. Every conversation seemed to circle back to Meghan's reputation. How did I come across? What are people saying about me? Should I post something? It wasn't friendship anymore. It was PR maintenance. And Serena, a woman who had spent her life earning everything through sweat and skill, began to resent it. Then came the Oprah interview in 2021. Meghan never warned Serena that she'd be mentioned by name. The world watched as Meghan told Oprah, Serena's been amazing. She's my rock. It sounded heartfelt, maybe even sweet, but it blindsided Serena. She wasn't angry at being mentioned. She was angry at being used as credibility collateral. The moment Meghan invoked her name, Serena's brand got pulled into the royal drama again. Reporters called. Sponsors called. Are you involved in this? They asked. Do you agree with her claims? Serena had to do damage control for a situation she never asked to be part of. And still, she said nothing. Out of respect, out of hope, out of habit. But the turning point came 2 years later, in 2023, during an event Serena hosted for her venture capital firm, Serena Ventures. It was an intimate evening celebrating female founders. Meghan was invited, not as a guest of honor, but as a supportive friend. Yet within 24 hours, a press leak described Meghan as a key speaker, who had co-hosted the event with Serena Williams. That wasn't true. Meghan had given an impromptu 3-minute toast and posed for photos. But the leak made it sound like she was co-running the event. Serena was livid. Her team traced the leak to a publicist connected to Meghan's camp. When Serena confronted her privately, Meghan reportedly brushed it off. "It's good press for both of us," she said lightly. "No harm done. No harm done." Those 3 words echoed in Serena's mind long after the conversation ended. Because harm had been done to her reputation, her brand, her peace. For years, she'd let Meghan drag her into narratives she didn't control. She'd forgiven the leaks, the name drops, the performative friendship. But this time was different. This time, Meghan had used her business, a legacy she'd built brick by brick, to polish her own image. Serena quietly drew a line. From that day on, she stopped replying to Meghan's messages as often. Invitations went unanswered. Conversations were short, polite, and increasingly rare. But Meghan, ever perceptive, noticed the shift. By late 2024, the tension was palpable. Serena had moved on, focusing on her family, her ventures, her peace. Meghan, meanwhile, was losing traction. Her deals were crumbling. Her Hollywood allies were distancing themselves. She needed Serena again, not just as a friend, but as a symbol. Because in Meghan's mind, proximity to Serena was power. When word spread that both women were expected to attend the 2025 Baby2Baby Gala, Meghan saw an opportunity to rewrite the narrative. "This is perfect," she told her team. "We'll remind people that we're still close. A few photos together, maybe a video clip. It'll change everything." But Serena had already made up her mind. When her assistant told her Meghan's team had reached out, Serena reportedly sighed. "Tell them I'll be polite," she said, "but not performative." That one sentence summed up everything that had gone wrong between them. And so, when Serena arrived at the gala that night, her heart wasn't filled with anger. It was filled with clarity. She wasn't going to humiliate Meghan. She wasn't going to lash out. She was simply going to disengage, with grace, dignity, and finality. Because that's what maturity looks like. Dim lights, the faint sound of music echoing from the ballroom, and the muffled chatter of staff. Meghan's heels clicked sharply against the marble floor as she approached the green room, where Serena stood with her husband, Alexis Ohanian, chatting casually with a few organizers. "Serena," Meghan called out softly, that familiar brightness in her tone, the kind that used to work. It didn't this time. Serena turned, polite but guarded. "Meghan," she said, her voice smooth, even. They hadn't been this close in years. For a brief second, time folded. The memories, the laughter, the photo ops. But the energy was different now. The air between them carried the weight of everything left unsaid. Meghan smiled, the way she always did when she wanted something. "You were incredible tonight. Really. That speech, it reminded me why people love you so much." "Thank you," Serena said simply. No warmth, just civility. There was an awkward pause. Alexis, sensing the tension, excused himself to give them space. The staff followed his lead. Within seconds, it was just the two of them. Meghan stepped closer, lowering her voice. "Listen, I know things have been weird between us. And I hate that. I've missed you." Serena tilted her head slightly. "Have you?" Meghan faltered, caught off guard by the question. "Of course I have," she insisted. "We've both been so busy, with everything going on. But tonight," she glanced around. "I thought maybe we could, I don't know, reconnect? Maybe get a photo together? For old time's sake." And there it was. The ask. Serena's expression didn't change, but her silence said everything. She didn't need to answer. Meghan felt the rejection before it came. "Meghan," Serena said finally, her voice steady. "This isn't the time. It doesn't have to be a big thing," Meghan pressed on, her voice soft, pleading. "Just one picture. You know how people are. They'll twist things if they think we're not friends anymore." Serena exhaled slowly. "That's not my concern." For a moment, Meghan just stood there, stunned. She wasn't used to Serena talking to her like that. Measured, final, untouchable. "Wow," Meghan whispered, her voice cracking slightly. "I didn't realize it had gotten to this point." Serena's tone softened slightly, but her words were firm. "It's not about points, Meghan. It's about peace. I don't live in that world anymore." "That world," Meghan repeated, her eyes narrowing. "What world?" "The one where everything has to be a headline. Serena replied. The one where friendship only exists when cameras are watching. The words hit Meghan like a slap. For once, she couldn't find her composure. That's not fair, she snapped. You know how people treat me. How they twist everything I say, everything I do. I've been fighting alone, Serena. I thought you of all people would understand that. I do understand, Serena said quietly. I just don't agree with how you've handled it. Meghan blinked. What's that supposed to mean? Serena hesitated, then spoke with deliberate calm. You turn everything into a spectacle. Pain, friendship, even kindness. It's all part of a narrative. And after a while, it stops feeling real. It stops feeling like you. The silence that followed was thick, suffocating. Meghan's chest rose and fell faster. For years, she'd been called manipulative, fake, calculated. But hearing it from Serena, the one person she thought would never say it, cut deeper than any headline ever could. So that's what you think of me now? Meghan said quietly. A performance? Serena sighed. I think you've forgotten who you are without the audience. For a long moment, neither spoke. Meghan's face softened, her anger slipping into something else, desperation. She reached out, placing a hand gently on Serena's arm. You were my friend, she said, her voice trembling. You were there when no one else was. When I couldn't trust anyone. Serena didn't pull away, but she didn't move closer either. I was your friend, she said, and I'll always wish you well. But I can't be part of this anymore. This cycle, Serena clarified. The drama, the optics, the constant noise. It's exhausting, Meghan. You say you want peace, but you keep chasing chaos. Meghan's hand dropped to her side. Her throat tightened. You sound like them, she said bitterly. The people who think they know me. The ones who've never lived a day in my shoes. Serena's eyes softened, but her tone didn't waver. No, I sound like someone who did. And that's why I can't do it anymore. For the first time that night, Meghan didn't know what to say. The walls she built around herself, the confidence, the control, the clever comebacks, they all crumbled in the face of Serena's calm truth. She stood there, eyes glistening.